right, it is February 28th, the next to the last day of Black History Month in this year, 2020. I'm talking to someone today who I really have actually kind of known for a while, but not actually get a chance to really know. And so this person in particular, somebody I went to college with at Georgia State University in Atlanta, somebody I have heard nothing but good things about in particular. And it's also a testament to what social media can do to actually like bring two people together to have a conversation. This person I'm about to talk to, he works for one of the few majorly Black real estate firms in the entire country, not just Atlanta, the entire country. It's even better that he's from the same hometown I'm from, which is Dakota, Georgia. It's even better that we had a chance to talk about things from a more nuanced perspective, which is both about gentrification, development, real estate, and a lot of things about self-actualization and entrepreneurship. And I'm proud to actually get a chance to talk to this guy. We're going to get into it first, but before we get into anything, if you are first listening to the podcast, please thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe on wherever you heard this podcast, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else. If you want to know more about anything we talked about today with Cedric, make sure you check the show notes of this particular podcast. And if you're listening for the first time, once again, this is the Neighborhood Watch Podcast. I am your host, King Williams, and I will be now let my guest introduce himself.
My name is Cedric Michael. I am the principal and vice president at T. Smith & Company. Like King said, from Decatur, Georgia. Georgia State University alum, so I'm just happy to be here.
Okay, and so for people at home, what do you actually do?
I am for lack of a better word, a commercial broker. And what I do, or what we do as a firm, is we represent companies, owners of businesses, acquire and lease commercial real estate properties, office, industrial, land. Okay,
and so for a lot of people now in 2020, this is no shade to anyone in particular. There seems to be a gulf of everyone saying they're in the real estate. And if you've been following me on social media, I've been actually reaching out to people saying, hey, I want to reach out to people in real estate, and also specifically Black people in real estate, right? Mm-hmm. So I get a lot of people who are either wholesaling or flipping houses or selling master classes on real estate. Mm-hmm. And when I got a chance to talk to you, it was great because you have such an insight to not only that part of the real estate side, but the bigger picture things and the harder things that are due in terms of the commercial space. So can you explain to people a little bit of the difference between, like, necessarily flipping housing and wholesaling first?
Sure. So I'll start kind of, you got residential investment real estate, and then you have commercial real estate. Two totally separate disciplines. Wholesaling, obviously, to me, is you found a property, you negotiate a particular sales price, you take that contract, you basically selling that contract to an investor that's willing to pay a little bit higher than what you have under contract for, and there's a margin there, and you make money that way. That's typically what a wholesaler does. Someone who flips a house is the actual investor who basically buys low, renovates, and sells at a market rate, and they make money from that particular transaction. That would be considered a flip.
Okay, and you've been in the real estate for a while now on the residential side, correct?
No, I've invested in houses before personally, but I've never represented anybody to buy a house. I've never done residential real estate at all.
Okay, good. Now I'm glad you corrected me.
Ever in my life.
Okay, and so how did you get into real estate in the first place?
That is a great question. So as the story goes, I was a senior in high school at Columbia High School. Shout out to CHS. And I was sitting with my high school counselor, Mark Greer, and we were talking about colleges. And he asked me the question, what do you want to do? And I told him I don't know what I want to do. I said, but I do know what I don't want to do. And what he told me, and he was like, okay, well, what don't you want to do? I said, I don't want to work for anybody for 30 years, and they tell me when I can go on vacation, when to go to lunch, and all that stuff. I wanted to have my own time. To me, I understood the value of time early. And plus, my dad was a blue-collar worker. I seen him work for Ford Motor Company for many, many years, set vacation hours and all that. I just didn't want that life. So after we had that conversation, he says, okay, well, it sounds like you want to be an entrepreneur. I said, I don't know, maybe. I don't know what I would do, but possibly, yeah. And so anyway, we're having this conversation, and his cell phone rings. Literally, his cell phone rings. And he answers the phone. He says, hey, I got to take this. And it's an attorney on the other line, because he's talking to an attorney, and they're scheduling a closing. He hangs up, calls his client back, tells them when the date the closing is, and tells them what they need to have for the closing and all that stuff. And I'm watching as all this is going down. He hangs the phone up and kind of turns back to me, and before he starts talking to me again, I say, hey, what was that? What'd you just do? He goes, oh, I just scheduled a closing. I said, oh, you do real estate? He was like, yeah, I do real estate on the weekends. I sell houses on the weekend. So, you know, anybody who went to Columbia knew that Mark Greer drove this nice Mercedes-Benz car. I was like, oh, that's how you afford that car. Because I know you ain't affording that car on the counselor's salary. He kind of laughed about it. He was like, yeah, I probably make more money selling real estate on the weekends than I do as a high school counselor. I was like, really? So me being the person I am, being kind of naive, I was like, so I just started asking questions. I was like, so how much you going to make on that? He was like, oh, I'll make 6%. I was like, okay, 6% on what? And I think it was maybe like $200,000 or something like that. And I was like, all right, cool. So then I was like, well, if I were you, man, I'd be trying to sell one of them bills downtown, man. I'm sure them things go for millions. You can get 6% on that. You wouldn't have to work here no more. So me being, saying that to him, he looking at me like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, I'm dead serious. If I was you, I'd be trying to do this building thing. I said, what is that? What's that called? He said, that's commercial real estate. I was like, all right, cool. I said, how I do that? That's literally how it happened. I said, how I do that? And he pulled this catalog out, and we started. He said, I don't even think you can get a degree in real estate. I was like, well, let's just find out. And so we found out a few schools, Georgia State being one of them, had a real estate program. And so I was originally going to go to Morehouse. And Morehouse didn't really have any real estate classes. I was just like gung-ho about this whole commercial real estate thing early on, because I was just like, man, you can do that from anywhere. Because in my mind, it was like, all you needed was a phone. A phone and a mouthpiece. It's like, that's all you need. So I was like, all right, I can do that. I can put deals together. I'm good with numbers. I can figure that out. And so anyway, ended up going to Georgia State, majoring in finance and real estate. So that I'll stop there because there's more to the story.
Okay. And so in terms of like being more to the story, I wanted to kind of jump into that because you have a very interesting story of just about how not only you've been in real estate, but you went through a lot of things and you stuck with it. So can you let people know more about what you're doing, or what you have done rather in real estate?
Yeah. So I started out when you talked about residential. I bought my first house when I was almost 20 years old, and I couldn't even tell you how I ended up buying the house. It was kind of a weird situation, but I ended up buying houses, I wanted to get some experience just investing in real estate. And so I just went out there and did it. I found some folks that could show me how to buy houses, and I did it. And I tell people all the time that, sarcastically, that, I majored in, so think about this, 2008, I graduated college with a real estate and finance degree, working for Bank of America, and I owned like 5 or 6 houses at the time, in 2008. Now, everybody knows 2008 was like a dark year for the recession and everything like that. So it seems like right after 2008, May of 2008, I graduated college. 2 weeks later, I got laid off from the bank, and then 2 weeks after that, they offered me a job back at the bank.
Yeah, doing what?
So I was a commercial banker at the bank. So I worked at Bank of America all through college.
Gotcha.
One of the beautiful things about Georgia State is that you can definitely work full time and go to school at Georgia State. So I did that basically all 4 or 5 years in college, and so I worked as a teller and worked my way all up to commercial banking. Got laid off. They offered me a job back as a small business banker. Wasn't what I wanted to do. I kind of felt like they was kind of boxing me in because I was really, my whole goal working in banking was to work in the corporate real estate side of the business. I was like, I'm going to work my way up to maybe work and manage some of these assets for Bank of America. That was kind of like in my mind, that's what I was going to do. And when they hired me back as a small business banker, I saw the path to that was just, it wasn't there. I just saw it wasn't there. And so I quit. And so I just quit, didn't have a job lined up or anything. And I was like, I'll figure it out. And I still had these houses that I had. I was like, I'll just focus on that. And around this time, nothing was selling. So I went through a period of time trying to manage my own houses and couldn't sell them. So I ended up foreclosing on houses. I had a whole crash course personally in residential investment real estate. So I know that game hands down. I failed at it. I sucked at that. And so after that, I worked in insurance for a little while. A buddy of mine worked for Bankers Life and Casualty, offered me a job there, did that. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I just was trying it out. Then from there, moved over to a company called Clearsight Funding, which was a fund-to-fund. And a lot of people don't know this, but it was a hedge fund ultimately that had these subsidiary funds. And what a fund to fund is, they hire or contract another company to underwrite certain projects or whatever for this allotment of cash for a certain return of investment. So we did that. So we did that for about a couple years, and then we got a call one day from the hedge fund and was like, hey, we're reorganizing, restructuring the fund, and we're going to close this fund up. So we were like, okay, so what we're supposed to do? We got these projects lined up to get funded. What do we do with those? Oh, just tell them we can't fund them. So again, this is around the recession where banks weren't lending. We were kind of at the time kind of one of the few money capital sources, and we didn't have the funds either. And so from that experience, I got experience going to Wall Street, trying to pitch our fund business plan to these other folks. Got told no by everybody. Nobody would give us any money. So I'm in this whole hustle mode, trying to fit everything together to the point where I just ran out of gas. I literally just ran out of gas, to the point where I had to move back home with my father. And lived in this basement for a couple of years to kind of figure out what I'm gonna do in my life. I was like, this is not how this story's supposed to go. Try to figure this thing out. And so the whole time all this is going on, from my banking to foreclosing on houses to clear-site funding, I knew Dallas. And Dallas was one of the few black people in commercial real estate that everybody kept talking about. If you want to be in commercial real estate, you need to know Dallas, you need to know H.J. Russell, you need to know Keith Mack. These are some individuals, older individuals that are in the game. And so the first time I met Dallas, I was actually in college, and I was working for Bank of America at the time, and I just wanted to meet him. I just wanted to know who he was. So I got an opportunity to meet him. And after our first conversation, after we finished talking, he asked me, did I have my real estate license? I said no. He said, well, just talking to you, I feel like you'd be really good in commercial brokerage. If you ever think about getting your license, let me know. And I was like, nah, I'm good where I'm at. And I was good where I was at. I was at Bank of America doing my thing. I was making money. I was fine. So that was the first time I told him no. The second time I told him no, I was with Clearside Funding. And since I knew Dallas, every time I had a client that had any type of commercial real estate questions or needs, I would just send it to either him or Leonte. I would just send it to him. And so even when I was with Clearside Funding, I was doing the same thing, to the point where he pulled me to the side after a meeting we had with a particular client, and he goes, man, you could be doing these transactions yourself, right? And I was like, yeah, I think you told me this before, but I'm not interested. It just wasn't.
Yeah, so why wouldn't you? Because that's twice from like a very, very successful most people would kill for that. Like, why would you just...
Being naive,
okay,
and not really understanding what Dallas saw in me and what he was talking about. I really, honestly, didn't really truly understand what Dallas did for a living or for business. I really didn't all I knew was he was a guy in commercial real estate that had resources, and I used him more of a resource partner for myself and my clients that I already had, because I was on the finance side. And so that's how I looked at it. I felt like it was more, my relationship with him was more of a resource partnership level, not really working for him. I wasn't there yet. And so everything comes full circle, because when I moved back home with my parents in the basement and trying to figure out what I was doing, I took a sales job working for Konica Minolta, selling big box printers and copiers and stuff. At this time I just needed a job to get out of my financial situation. And so I got a call one day from Leonte. Me and him have been friends for a very long time. And he was like, man, what you doing tonight? I was like, man, I ain't got no plans. He was like, well, there's just a little party going on. You should come out. I was like, all right, cool, I'll come out. And I was honest with him. I was like, man, I don't have no money to really do anything. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. I got you. All right, cool. So we get up, go to this party, and we don't even really party. Everybody else is partying, and we're in the back, talking business. And, I'm telling him kind of what I'm going through. I'm with Konica Minolta. I hate what I do, all this stuff. And he was like, man, and at the end of him listening to me, he goes, have you talked to Dallas lately? I said, no, I haven't. He said, man, he still asks about you from time to time. You should talk to him. Seriously, we got some really good things going on with the company. we can use somebody like you. So I was like, all right, cool. I literally text Dallas that night, like at 2:00 in the morning, just something, just like, let me at least explore this. I'm open. I'm open to anything right now. And so I text Dallas like, hey, can we get up for lunch? And he texted me back like immediately, late. I don't know what he was doing, but he texted me back and was like, yeah, let's do lunch. I'm available this time. Blah blah blah. I was like, all right, cool. So we had lunch. It was a scheduled hour lunch that took 3 hours. And during that lunch, we just was extremely just open and honest about everything. Every little thing that I was going through in life, I had been through, I just let him know. This is what I don't know what I'm doing. This is what kind of where I'm at. And at the end of him listening, he told me, he's like, listen, you just getting started. You just getting started. You said you have no idea. He said, learn from my mistakes. And he told me his story. And I just couldn't do nothing but laugh. And I was like, wow, we got similar stories. And he was like, you ain't been through nothing yet. He said, you just get started. So at the end of this, I really understood Dallas. And then after that, we got right into the vision. He laid out his vision and plans for what he was trying to build here at T. Smith & Company. And when he finished, I said, I can help you build that. He was like, I've been trying to tell you that, you're a natural fit for this business back when I first met you. I was like, yeah, I just really didn't understand what you did. But now that I do, and I know where I fit in. I see the value. I said, give me a year and I'll come on board. And he thought I wasn't coming. He was like, man, you playing. You've been telling me no the last 3 times. You ain't really coming. Because I said, well, I needed a year because I had to get my, it was a very entrepreneurial thing he was asking of me. And I told him, I said, you're not hearing my story. I don't have no money. Like, you're not paying me no salary. You want me to come in here and basically do a new business from scratch. I gotta pay some debts off. I gotta pay my family off. Let me just get my house in order and get my license and everything I need to get in order. And when I come on board, I'm hitting the ground running. I'm diving in to everything. You'll have everything. And so exactly a year went by. I had my license. I moved out my parents' house. I saved some money up. Got everything structured the way I wanted to, so I can really dedicate my time and energy towards this. And that was I came on board in 2013. And I've been rocking and rolling ever since. I haven't looked back, and I'm just been extremely grateful and blessed, kind of where we started from, and then kind of where we are today. It's kind of really unbelievable.
Yeah, and so for the people at home, what is T. Dallas Smith in particular? What is the company?
So T. Dallas Smith & Company is the largest African-American owned commercial real estate firm in the country that specializes in tenant representation and commercial real estate services. And I know that's a mouthful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what does that mean? Yeah.
So we represent companies such as FedEx, AT&T, Coca-Cola, Microsoft for some of our clients all over the country, representing them with their commercial real estate service, with their commercial real estate. So that's inclusive of leasing, acquisitions, site selection. That's what we do, advising, and so we do that all over the country for them. It started out with just AT&T, and then it's grown. The client list has just grown over time. So.
Yes. And so for people who are still trying to figure out what does that mean in the commercial space versus, like, let's say somebody who's really big in residential.
So again, when I was in the beginning, I said residential and commercial are just 2 totally different disciplines.
Okay.
In commercial, you're dealing with businesses and companies that are looking at financials. They're looking at does this property fit within our culture? Does this property fit within our business for where our employees are? So there's a different decision-making criteria when businesses make decisions on where they are versus dealing with a home. Obviously, it's where you want to lay your head at night, where you want to be comfortable. So, and you want your kitchen to be nice, and you want your bathroom. So it's more of an emotional comfort thing that's very unique to that individual or that family. So that is really the biggest difference. You're not dealing with a bathroom and a kitchen. You're dealing with workspaces. You're dealing with how does this relate to our customers? How do we make money from this? So it's a different conversation.
Right. And so one of the things you guys really do a lot of, just going through the research, is you work very specifically in like a very specific niche of commercial real estate. Can you explain to people what that niche is?
Yeah. So our niche is tenant representation. That really is our niche. And I describe it this way for folks who don't really understand what that means. I describe it as if you were to go to court and you have a prosecutor and you have a defense attorney. You would not go to court if you were getting prosecuted for a crime without an attorney. Same way with commercial real estate. You should not be going out looking at any commercial real estate without someone to represent your interest. So that's what we do. We're the tenant rep is basically your defense attorney.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, and so also in the commercial space now, you're in Atlanta, which is a really hot market right now. What has been just like what you've seen so far on the commercial side in Atlanta real estate the last few years?
Atlanta is booming.
Okay.
Like literally booming for several different reasons. Atlanta is growing. I don't know all the numbers, but as far as just people moving here, I think we're at 6 million people now in the city. When I think back in 2003 when I graduated high school, I think we were probably like at 3, maybe. So I think we doubled in size in the last 15 years, and which is fun. That's a lot, and we're growing faster, and that's just because of a lot of different reasons. I mean, Atlanta's a great cost of living. You can learn the cost of living, affordable housing compared to the rest of the country. We're still really low compared to the rest of the country. Jobs is a big one here, and then specifically for Black folks, I think Atlanta is a very unique place. I tell people all the time. I've been fortunate enough to travel all over the country, and there's no place like home. There's no place like.
I agree
Atlanta.
with you on that one fully.
There's no place like home. I don't care what's going on in Atlanta. It's still Atlanta. It's still the best, in my opinion, one of the best cities in the country, especially for Black people. And I said, if you're from Atlanta or have the opportunity to live in Atlanta, and you're Black, you are really, really blessed. Because if you go outside of Atlanta, I mean, you can just go out. Someone told me, without Atlanta, Georgia's Alabama, and that's a fact. And then if you go outside of Georgia, you in Alabama. So I'm just saying, you have to really put things in perspective. That we're a city. We have our issues. We have, just like every city does, and we're dealing with them how we deal with them. But I think as the future goes on, I think the solutions and the things, the culture that come out of Atlanta, it's going to be countries. The solutions for whatever the issues are nationally will come from Atlanta.
I fully believe that.
They will come from Atlanta. Trust me.
Right, and so I want to stick on to that for a second, which is there's been so much success about Black people in real estate in Atlanta in particular. Why do you think that is? Well,
because we have Black people at different levels that you don't see in other cities, and that is the secret sauce, if you want to call it, of Atlanta, where you have people of color in politics. You have and not just low politics. We're talking about local, state, and federal level politics. We have people of color that we're represented here in Atlanta, unlike other cities. Our police, Atlanta police, is Black. I mean, I rarely see white APD officers. I mean, you don't see that often. Now, if you go outside of APD, I mean, that's another story. Cobb, Henry, that's different. That ain't Atlanta though. I think business owners, as far as Black wealth, entertainment, film, music, Atlanta is really that place. We have all the right ingredients. We have all the right ingredients to build this beautiful cake we call Atlanta, and I think it's very unique, and everybody wants a piece of it.
Right, and so I brought this up on Twitter in particular, like a couple weeks ago. There was somebody who said something on another podcast I'm not going to name, and the guy said, "There's no one doing black people doing real estate on a commercial level," and I was like, I know that's a lie. Because I know T. Dallas Smith exists. I know H.J. Russell exists. This is a guy out of Milwaukee, and people who listen to that particular podcast will probably know who I'm talking about. And then a flood of people from other parts of the country who are in commercial real estate, but a lot of people from Atlanta just kept hitting me up. It's like, hey, let the people know that we're into this. And like, what do you think that is, though, in particular, for people who believe real estate is all white? Like, how do you challenge that notion that it's not, and that you could be successful where you guys are?
Well, it's not all white, but it is majority white.
Right.
Blacks in commercial real estate and minorities make up less than 3% of the industry. Less than 3%. So that's why we can confidently say as a firm we're the largest. And you know how many people in this particular office? 18. All people of color. So we're the largest in the whole country, in the whole industry. So I can understand why someone will be ignorant to not know about our firm from Milwaukee. Does that make sense? Fair. So it's funny to me because I see it and live it every day. And so, because when I see someone of color and they say they're in commercial real estate, I ask just a few questions. Well, who you with? Are you a broker? Or are you working with somebody? And so, if they tell me they are, with KW, or they're with some type of residential house, but they're doing commercial at the same time, I always especially the people of color, I tell them, I said, listen, you got to make a decision. Either you're going to do residential or you're going to do commercial, because we already got a strike because we're black in this business, right? What I know about the industry is, if the person on the other side of the table is non-black, is white, and you're out trying to do a commercial real estate transaction, they know that you do residential, they're not going to take you seriously. They're just not. I just know that for a fact. They're just going to think, well, you plan in this, but you really don't do this. You really do residential. You know what I mean? And so that's the vibe you're going to get, and you could get taken advantage of because they don't think you know what you're doing.
Right.
And that's just from the broker side.
And so you guys at T. Dallas Smith, and you and yourself, you guys have a lot of experience in your office in the commercial real estate space. But in terms of that, there seems to be sometimes like a bit of like misunderstanding about what you guys do and what the commercial real estate space is. Can you explain that to people? Or just like make some, if you've seen corrections out there you want to make some corrections about?
Well, so I'll tell you this. When I first got into commercial real estate, so there's two different things. I have to be specific when you say commercial real estate or you just say real estate, because when you say real estate, it's a very general thing, and most time people attribute real estate to residential real estate. And just from an education standpoint, commercial real estate is multifaceted. And for those that don't know, commercial real estate is multifamily is commercial real estate. You have commercial investment real estate. You have brokerage. You have so many different things. You have corporate real estate services. There's so many different disciplines in this business, and what we do, we're on the representation side of the business. So we represent companies that need real estate. Every company has a home or a place to do business. We provide that. And so sometimes when folks don't really understand that, they'll just send any and everything to you. Oh, I got this. Can you help me find a 100-unit apartment complex? Well, that's investment real estate. That's not what we do. We're more on the commercial, on the corporate side, on the business side of things. So if you want to lease an office space or lease an industrial warehouse building or acquire a commercial building, we can help with that. Or land for development, we can help with that. But we're not really, looking at investment real estate for, investors.
Right.
That's not really our like multifamily, that's not really our thing. So that's another discipline. So I always tell folks who want to get into this business, specialize in something. Like if you're going to be investment real estate, fine. That's I know a lot of people that make a ton of money in investment real estate. I said, but make sure that's what you're going to focus on. If you're going to do representation and brokerage, focus on that. If you're going to do property management, focus on that. So you just got to make sure you're in your lane, because once you get out of it and you start saying I do all of this stuff, you don't do it well. You're not doing anything well.
Right. And so I want to speak a little bit about the how do you, in a simplified way, how do you actually go about acquiring commercial real estate?
Okay. It depends on what kind of commercial real estate you want to buy.
Okay.
It depends. And the first step for me, if I have a client that says, Cedric, so I'll give you a real life example. So most of these companies that we represent, large companies that we represent, don't own their real estate. That's what people don't know. They don't. Your St. Jude's of the world, your AT&T's, your FedEx's of the world, they don't own real estate. They lease real estate. Okay. The reason why they lease it is because when you own it, that's a whole nother business. Now you got to manage it. If thing goes wrong with it, you got to fix it. And then if the business goes down or whatever the case may be, then you got to sell that real estate asset at some point in time. Nobody wants to deal with that. That's a whole nother headache to deal with, especially in a down market. Like if a recession were to happen again, and that business needs to liquidate, they're going to have a hard time recouping that money on the asset. It's easier for them to back it out of a lease situation, right? Or get larger space or contract space for their employees quicker, flexibility. And then from a balance sheet accounting standpoint, it makes sense from an expense standpoint versus the capital and all that stuff. So that's a whole nother accounting issue. So there's reasons why these companies don't like to own their real estate. Now you have some companies that do own their real estate, and I always tell businesses, make sure you know what your business is. So for an example, I always advise dentists, any type of community service related business, you probably want to own your real estate because you're in a target market. You're in an area or a market. Your market is where you're placed, and you want to be there long term. So if you plan on being in an area for longer than 15, 20 years, you probably want to own that real estate. You'll probably get more value out of owning it than leasing it. So I always advise people, if you're going to acquire something, depending on the business that you're in, make sure you understand that. And so if you were coming to me and I said, hey, you want to acquire, you're looking to, acquire some property, we'll sit down, we'll have a discussion, kind of where you're at from a business standpoint. We'll have a discovery meeting, kind of talk about, your budget requirements. We'll talk about the market. We'll talk about specific areas of town that might interest you and that I think you probably should look at. And then we just go through the process where, I'll identify the properties. We'll look at them together. We'll tour them. We'll ask questions. We'll negotiate, and we get a deal done. I mean, that's simple, but it's a lot more stuff. But I'm trying to keep it very high level.
No, that's what. And one of the things I want to ask you too is a little bit off topic, which is in the building that we're in right now, there is a company known as Wework. For some people at home, this is probably your first time hearing about Wework. For Cedric, this is definitely not. In the case of what Wework has been doing, which is like doing co-working spaces, renting out long-term leases, what do you feel like that's an encroaching on you guys' business, or is that just something that's its own market? No,
not at all. I've done business with Wework.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have clients that use Wework all the time. So, I mean, it's not, people tend to fear what they don't understand.
Okay.
And I think that was the biggest thing, Wework coming on the market. I've done a lot of homework on Wework. A lot of homework. Their story should be a movie. If you ever get a chance to know the story of WeWork.
It actually is. Somebody's going to make that into a TV show.
They should. They should.
Yeah.
You should read the story. I mean, they got a podcast.
It just came out recently.
Yeah. That you should. I'm listening to right now because the story is crazy. Basically started WeWork out of thin air, but that's a whole nother.
That is a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast altogether. But at the end of the day, I think the value in WeWork is the brand. I mean, personally, because it defies all real estate fundamentals, what they did. And it doesn't make any sense to just keep leasing, and then raising more money without having enough tenants to support the business. I mean, it's just, the fundamentals don't make any sense. But they created a brand that's so recognizable, and there's so much value in the brand that people love it. And so people are going to continue to pay that membership. And he basically created a community called WeWork. And so that's really what you're buying into. You're buying into that community, the vibe, to say that I'm a part of WeWork. I mean, that's what you're buying into. And then obviously the workspaces, and if you got a startup company or a small company or a two-man shop or whatever case may be, you got a place where you're not siloed in just kind of your own little spot. Yeah, you can collaborate and communicate and talk to other folks that are around you in this community. So I think WeWork is definitely. I don't think they're going anywhere. They're going to be around for a while. You have a lot of corporations using WeWork now because of telework. Yeah. So a lot of companies allow their employees to telework now. They don't really want, as the generation, is it Z behind us?
Z, yeah.
Z, they don't want traditional office spaces. They don't want to be sitting in a cubicle. They want more spaces like WeWork. So a lot of times, they're like, well, if you're going to work from home, or you can work from WeWork, choose one. And so, it creates options because companies now know they have to invest in their employees' culture and their and how they work. They have to invest in that in order to keep employees happy. Because I don't think our generation. I'm an old millennial.
Same.
I consider myself an older millennial, but younger millennials and next generation, I don't think that they're gonna. I think that we're not gonna sit somewhere too long. That we're unhappy.
Nobody's sitting 20 years.
I'm not sitting somewhere working where I'm unhappy. I don't like who I'm working. I knew that early. I knew I wasn't doing that. And I think that a lot of my peers, I think you probably would agree that they're not doing that. They're gonna look elsewhere. They're not staying somewhere they're looking for an exit.
Right.
And so if they're not happy and you're not creating something that keeps them there, other than the money, it's got to be something more than the money. I gotta like my lifestyle as well.
Right. And so that actually brings me to something else interesting, which is If you guys haven't followed Cedric on Instagram, a lot of the posts he has is really interesting. One of the posts he always talks about, besides real estate, it's just things about entrepreneurship in particular. And so WeWork, in a lot of ways, is both a positive and a negative aspect of like what entrepreneurship can kind of bring. Mm-hmm. But one of the things you talk about a lot, just going through your things, is just this notion of entrepreneurship needing to start up again, and entrepreneurship just for younger people. And mm-hmm. so, do you want to talk about that a bit, just like this need for entrepreneurship again?
Yeah. I think I just think everybody needs to have their own business. That's just what I believe. I mean. And part of that's because of how I was raised and what I seen growing up. Like my granny doesn't have higher than an 8th grade education, but she's been all over the world. She's flown to China, Europe, Africa. She's been all over the world off an 8th grade education. And so she ran. She had a party bus before the party buses was a thing. You know what I mean? She would basically, buy a bunch of liquor and rent a van and sell tickets to go down to go to the casino. And this is in Indiana. And she would load up and they would go. And she would do this. I mean, that was her business. She had like a travel business. She would do that. She would sell dinner plates. She would do all these different things. She worked for the post office. She had all these different jobs. She had jobs and she had business ventures. So I've seen it from a very early age. My dad the same way. My mom's side of the family, they've always had these different things of ways of generating money outside of getting a paycheck.
Right. And
I think, and this is Cedric talk, in my opinion, I just think that our community, need to get back to that. We need to stop relying on a job and a paycheck, because as we saw during the recession, that can go like that. I mean, that can go away. And what you gonna do? So we have to figure out a way to create our own economics, our own commerce, by simple economics. Either it's a product or a service. Are you doing? What are you gonna do? Figure it out. And that's really my whole point. Is like, learn how to recognize opportunities. I tell a lot of my young guys here, read. I mean, read as much as you can about business. Just read. I don't care what it is. Read it. I said, because the more you read about it, you're going to fine-tune your brain, you're going to fine-tune your eyes, your ears, and you're going to be able to recognize opportunities very quickly. And then once you recognize them, you'll understand, okay, how do I make this money for myself? Who do I know I can pull in, that I can team up with to make this thing happen? Who can I collaborate with? And I think that is what people need to kind of also, I think there should be some type of high school course, or some required course in college or something like that you need to understand how to make money. Economics is a big thing. I mean, and I just think I think that should be a core thing that everybody should know.
Right, and so that brings us to another part of thing that you've been talking about in particular, which is this notion of, I'm not even going to say that you said this directly, but a lot of posts you kind of are in this vein, which is like this notion of either buying back the block or reinvesting in like Black communities. I want to be clear, you guys, we're both from the same part of Atlanta, so like this is a very specific thing. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about Atlanta in particular, we're talking about two places, either the city or DeKalb County, just places where we know. And so in that regard, you've been really a champion for this, and I want you to give an opportunity to let people know what you mean by like either buying back the block or reinvesting, and what that could look like in like Black communities in Atlanta.
So I'll start with this. To answer that question. I heard somebody say this, and I just adopted it. And I can't remember the guy I heard it from, because I wish I can give him the credit for saying this, because it made me think, and I never forgot it. He said every hood in America, just think about it, every urban hood where Black folks are centered around in America, where are they located? Just think about that for a minute. Where are they located? And he said, and what's the number one like rule that you learn when you first people talk about real estate? That's the number one fundamental rule.
Buy low, sell high?
No.
Let me know. Shit.
Location.
Fair enough.
Location is the number one thing that they always talk about. Now, if you look at all the hoods and areas of Black communities across America, what's one thing that we have?
Good locations.
We got location. Okay? And so I don't think us as a community knew what we had until now.
That's a fair point.
You know what I mean? I don't think we really realized what we had until now. And I think because of that, there's a shock value going on. So when people keep saying buy back the block, in my mind I'm like, you already got the block. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm saying? You should already had the block, and part of it because we don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Part of it was a lack of education, whatever the case may be. We just some stuff we didn't know. Some folks did know, and they just didn't share the information or pass the information down. And I've learned that just from being in the room. I tell people all the time, I'm privileged enough to be in certain rooms that a lot of people aren't be a part of, and I hear conversations that most people don't get a chance to hear, and I'm like, dang, had we done this is what we would have been, because had we known that someone didn't provide the information. But I think because of the internet, because of access, social media, we have access to information now, like readily available in our hands. So when people start saying buy back the block, I think it's gonna happen. It depends on what you think that means. Buy back the block. I personally don't know what that means. When you mean buy back the block, I just, in my mind, it's like, recognize opportunity. That's really what I think it should be. It's not buy back the block. It's recognize an opportunity when you see one, and knowing how, and then not only just recognize it, learn how to execute on the opportunity. Like that's the missing piece. How do you recognize, one, how you recognize it, and two, once I see it, how do I figure this out? You know what I mean? I think that's my mindset behind it. That's how I think, and I'm not saying everybody should think like Cedric, but I think that if people really stop talking about it and start putting together some action behind it, I think, man, people won't be complaining as much as they do, or saying these things that really, to me, just don't hold a lot of weight. It's like, what do you mean? Or what are you buying? Why are you buying it? Ask these questions to really understand, what you're doing. What's your end game? Are you just buying just because you don't want somebody else to have it? You know what I mean? That defeats the purpose. It's like that's not what we're here about. If you're really trying to advance the community, trying to do things better for everybody, you got to think bigger than that. You can't. Don't do this. Once you do this, you're doing the same thing that happened back then. You're doing the exact same thing, and then the history's gonna repeat itself.
Okay, so that brings me to something else, which is this notion of gentrification in Atlanta. And so this gentrification in Atlanta, it's its own particular topic. It's a documentary that I've been working on. It's another documentary I'm working on Eastlake. It's so big that it's a lot of moving parts to it. So we're going to take a slower approach to this one in particular. When it comes to gentrification in Atlanta, in your opinion, first, what is something that you believe people are misconstruing about it?
Okay, I'm gonna, before I get into it, let me give you some context. So, you before we started, you said you listened to you saw the documentary on H.J. Russell. Mm-hmm. One of the great advice that he gave all of us was, he said, if you really want to be wealthy and successful in real estate, what you need to do is you need to buy it when it's ugly, in the inevitable path of growth. Okay? Buy it when it's ugly, in the inevitable path of growth. He said, that's what I did. So I'll start there. And gentrification, to me, is it's gotten a negative connotation behind it, and it's become colorful. And I know there's color behind it because black folks are the most affected by displacement from gentrification. But again, back to my point where I said, you got to recognize opportunity when you see one and know how to execute on it. I feel like gentrification is not an issue for those who know where the opportunity exists. So you have two trains of thought. You have folks that think, well, I'm getting displaced, and they see it as white folks are moving us out of here. And in actuality, and I know some of these white developers and some of these white folks, I hate to say this, but I'm telling you, they not think about y'all like that. They just not. I mean, I'm just being straight up honestly. They're looking at the real estate. They're looking strictly at an opportunity, and the reason why they're looking at the opportunity is not because it's cheap real estate. It's because they know the opportunities that are coming. They know the inevitable path of growth. That's really that's what's driving it. It's an inevitable path of growth. Atlanta is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and we don't have enough room on the side of I-20 anymore to keep building So they're looking elsewhere, and that's the natural growth and evolution of a city is to start looking in other areas of town where we can develop and provide resources. Now, here's the flip side of the coin. Here's the catch-22. These folks that are in these communities that are getting displaced have been there for a while, and they've been asking for resources. They've been asking for money. They've been asking for this development, in our communities that just haven't happened. Why all of a sudden now you want to come over here? You know what I mean? Why all of a sudden now you want to come over here and mess with us when you weren't trying to mess with us before? So we gonna make a lot of noise about it now. So I get it. I get it. Now here's another side of the coin. You have like folks who grew up in the hood. Like I know folks that grew up in the hood who've been trying to get out the hood. They never wanted to be there in the first place. They was like, I'm trying to get up out of here. And as soon as I get the opportunity to get out of here, I'm out of here. Now you got those same folks like, well, things getting better over here now, so let me see what I can get. So you got to be careful. I think people have to be careful about, what's their motivation behind making noise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're gonna make noise, make it mean something. Make it mean something. Like, if everybody got that, every hood got that one lady's grass, you better not run across. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She been there forever, but you better not touch her grass. You better not when she keep her house nice. That lady needs to stay in that community for as long as she want to be there. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody need to pay her taxes. We need to figure that out.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? That's that situation. That she shouldn't be getting displaced because she was a good steward of her real estate. She took care of it, and nobody touched her grass. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's my little sense on that.
Well, no, because now we're gonna go a little deeper with it, which is one thing I will say is that you do a lot of that where you kind of bring out the pros and cons in your posts. Like some people just say like gentrification is really good or just really bad. You're really good about just kind of showing the nuance of it. And that brings me to one other thing is, do you think people are getting gentrification with revitalization misconstrued? Because those are two different things, even though on the surface they seem very much the same.
Well, they kind of are the same a little bit because it goes back to simple economics. If we take race and social stuff out of the picture just for a second, and we just focus on economics. Whenever I invest money to revitalize an area, I provide resources, whether I'm improving the school system, whether I'm improving utilities, whether I'm improving the streets, or whatever the case may be, whatever any resources and things I'm investing in this community, what's going to happen is families like myself, I got a young family, I'm going to start looking, oh, okay, they did something, the school systems got better, let me look at this area. Oh, the streets look nice. Oh, they got a new grocery store. Oh, they got a Whole Foods now. Okay, cool. Oh, there's a Starbucks. Oh man, this is a nice little. I can see myself living over here now. Has nothing to do with whether the black person, was over here, or it has nothing to do with that. It's just really about this area has some resources that I would like to, and the location is really good for my commute to work, or and everything. So it's a lot of economic things that people make decisions on. Now the social piece of it, I think, has come to light because in every community there's issues. Every community there's issues that are presently there, and if you're an outsider coming to a community and you don't know what those social issues are, then I can see how that can be a little like you ain't even from here. You don't know what's going on. You coming over here trying to make decisions or trying do this stuff, and you disrupting what we've been trying to fix on for the last 10, 20 years. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think, me personally, I try to give the full picture because I think people don't really see the full picture.
It's hard.
It's hard. And you got to see the whole picture and really kind of take 2 steps back and look at everything and say, all right, I see it now. I see the bigger picture. And then you also have to see the bigger picture.
Which is
in the future. What is it going to look like in the future? You have to see the bigger picture because at the end of the day, we're going to get older and it's guaranteed we're going to die. So we have to prepare the next generation for these communities. That's really what we're doing. That's what's happening in Atlanta is really, we're setting ourselves up for the next 20, 30 years. So that's the kind of foresight we have to have. Even developers have to have that kind of insight. And I think, like I said at the beginning, the solution is going to come from Atlanta. I think because Atlanta makes so much noise about it, you got to fix it, or we gonna continue to make noise about it. And I think we're gonna fix the affordable housing. We're gonna fix it before anybody in the rest of the country does. We'll fix it here first. Well, and it probably won't be fully fixed ever. There's still gonna be some holes or whatever. But I think, and I'm an optimistic person. I'm very optimistic. I think the next generation should be smarter than me. Should be moving faster than me. They should be way better than me. And I think they're gonna have more resources than we had growing up. Mm-hmm. And if you really truly believe that, then don't worry. So just feel like, just calm down a minute. This is a journey. This is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. Everything is shock value right now. Let's wait and see what happens, because you never know. And everybody's situation is different. And sometimes you got to take things on a case by case basis, or take things as they come and deal with them. Some stuff you can prepare for, some stuff you can kind of plan for, whatever the case may be. But I just think that people got to relax. This is happening whether you like it or not. So you have to figure out what lane you're going to play in, right? Because I asked a question the other day at a panel I did for gentrification. I asked them, I said, let's say I'm a wealthy individual. I'm an investor. And I'm going to Lakewood, I'm going southwest Atlanta, and I'm going to invest. I'm going to buy a house, and I'm actually going to live in it. And I'm going to make investments around my house. Did I just gentrify your neighborhood?
I know we're going to get into that, but in regard, probably. It depends on who it is, but like if me and you would make the same amount of income, no. But if I make, let's say, $20,000 at Walmart, you're definitely going to gentrify my neighborhood.
So I'm gentrifying your neighborhood. Yeah. So when I asked that question to the panel, which is majority black, they said, no, because you black. So
that's the education piece. I do want people to know about it, but I'm not going to completely throw out the disregard there. The race and gentrification in Atlanta in particular are intertwined. There is some parts of it that are just, you can't separate those parts of it.
The history is there. They kept us to the south side in these pockets for a reason. They redlined us for a reason. So,
right.
Yeah.
So that's why I enjoy like a lot of your stuff, because you're the only person I think outside of a few, maybe 2 or 3 other people on like that scale to say, hey, listen, this is the whole picture. I'm going to give you a little history. I'm going to give you a current day amount of facts, and then I'm going to show you the future. And so that brings me to something else I want we to talk about, which is it's in a commercial space. It's from a place where we know it's an actual physical building. The number one story I've got a request about is this particular building, which is South DeKalb Mall. And so you laugh, right? Mm-hmm. But that's my number one requested article. People keep asking, like, hey, King, when are you going to do something about South DeKalb Mall? Or when are you going to do a story? When are you going to do a podcast? And so I will tell you now, by the time this podcast airs, you will have a story on South DeKalb Mall. But with that said, South DeKalb Mall, as you know, it's had its heyday. I spent a lot of time with South DeKalb Mall. Yeah. I still do sometimes. And the mall is declining for sure. Macy's is leaving. It's going through liquidation in the mall. But Macy's as a whole is going through a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, South DeKalb Mall has a lot of memories, but it's a mall that's not as frequented as it used to be. Yeah. If you are hypothetically able to do anything with South DeKalb Mall right now, what would you do? So it's interesting you asked me that question, and you'll be surprised how many times when I'm talking just to people, we're just building. We have these building conversations where people are just like, let's just throw ideas out there. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Malls is an interesting thing to me, because South DeKalb specifically, obviously, malls across the country aren't doing well. They just aren't. Retail is different due to Amazon, people shopping online. That's the reason why you see these malls that we grew up in really become deserted, because we do most of our shopping online now. I mean, we don't really when we entertain ourselves, it's not at the mall anymore. I think kids, I don't know what kids, teenagers, I don't know where they hang out now. I got to ask them. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, because I used to hang out at Stonecrest when Stonecrest first got built. South DeKalb was a mall. North DeKalb was a mall. So wherever they hang out, so I don't know where. I got to figure out where they hang out. But anyway, because of that, teenagers really aren't your consumers. You know what I mean? They're not coming to the mall to shop. They're coming to the mall to hang. So that being said,
I think malls in general, what we call in our world, we call it adaptive reuse. And for those who don't know what adaptive reuse is, it means taking an asset like a mall and using that same space for a non-traditional use. For an example, think about a mall, just from a building perspective. You have Macy's, large block space, right? Let's just call it 50,000 square feet. It's got several floors. What's one thing that all malls have a lot of?
Space.
Parking.
This is true.
All malls have lots of parking. So if you think about malls and needs for parking, there's a number of things. There's a company that goes around. I know that leases a big, large block of space in South Lake Mall, and they have a call center in there. So they use a former J.C. Penney, and now they have a call center, a big old call center in there. There's a mall on the north side of town. I can't remember what it was. There's a large block of space. They turned that big block of space into a skate park. You know what I mean? So I think people have to rethink what a mall is, specifically for South DeKalb. I think what South DeKalb needs and that area needs is some type of convention center for events. That's what I think. That's my vision for South DeKalb Mall. I think that it should be a combination of like a convocation center for all the graduations that happen in the area. I hated going to Panthersville.
True.
It's sitting outside. You know what I mean? It was hot in May. But I think if you do something like that, you got enough parking. And South DeKalb Mall, there's plenty of parking. You can do something for a lot of the kids over there. Y'all can have events there. I think there's enough space for like a big, large indoor basketball facility to do games. I mean, host AAU games and things of that nature. There's enough room and parking to do stuff like that there. I think we have to think outside of the box. And then, because what happens is you got a food court. You don't have to do anything to the food court, right? Because if we're having games there, there's your food, so we got to think about, how do we reuse what's already there, the infrastructure that's already there. And I think another thing we should look at is esports. I don't think, if us as black people, I'm saying that on this podcast specifically for black folks to get involved in the esports, because it's becoming a $1 billion industry right before our eyes, and we ain't in it, we're going to miss out. Again, recognize an opportunity. So think about that. That could be a place where esports arena could go to get people to play these video games and make millions and millions of dollars. I mean, it's so many different industries and ideas that a mall like South DeKalb Mall could support because it has the infrastructure, it has the parking, it has all these different components that you can utilize. But it just takes somebody with vision to do it.
Right. And speaking of vision, I ask every one of my guests that's on the podcast, I'm going to ask you the same. It's similar to the South DeKalb Mall question, mm-hmm. which is, you're in commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. And if there is one thing about your industry that you could change right now, no restrictions, what would it be?
Wow, that's a loaded question. One thing I would change about my industry?
Yep.
It would just be more people of color.
Okay.
More, which is happening, and it's our mission, really, at T. Smith & Company, is to expose as many people that look like us to this business. We want to increase that less than 3% number. We want to get at least 6.
Right.
Let's try to double it. Because we feel like there's just a missed opportunity for us as for black folks to be in this business and really make a good living. Because I've been in this business, I've been blessed. I really have, and I think that I don't want to be the only one. You know what I mean? I don't want us just to be the only one. I want to see us thrive, and I feel like I got a young son and daughter. I'm going to teach them the same thing. Like, yo, y'all got to be entrepreneurs. If you're gonna do commercial real estate, I need you to learn how to do these certain things, and not just for yourselves, for other people. I think that's what we all have to collectively do, and they do it in other cultures. I mean, the Indian cultures, Chinese cultures, Hispanic cultures. I mean, we're the only culture that's kind of sometimes disjointed. But I think if we collaborate more, we share information better. I think, man, I see. I'm an optimistic person. I see the broadening of America really benefiting us more because you're seeing more black CEOs, you're seeing more black people in C-level positions, and they have to be intentional about reaching and finding these T. Smith and companies of the world and these other black companies that say, hey, we want to do business with y'all. We want to, help you guys out. That's the only way we all collectively rise from where we've been. So that's my 2 cents there.
Okay. And so what else is going on with you or in the world of T. Smith that you want people to know?
Man, we're working, and we're very excited about where we are. We got a lot of things going. We're in a very unique, special place right now as a company. We just want people to know that we're here. We're here. We on the map. We're here. And if you have any needs in commercial real estate, you're interested in getting into the business, come see us. One of the things, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this organization. I think I told you about it because I want you to come to a meeting.
Okay.
Empire Board of Realtors.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you told me that. Yeah.
Okay. Empire Board of Realtors is one of the nonprofits that we're a part of. It's the oldest black real estate trade organization. It was put together because back in the day, I don't know the dates off the top of my head, black folks couldn't be realtors. So what we do back in those days, we started our own. And so if you were licensed and you were real estate licensed, you were a realtist, not a realtor. So you represented people of color, you were a realtist. Okay? You were a realtist and a realtor at the same time. So this organization we're a part of because of the history of it, 1. 2, the motto is democracy and housing, and creating black wealth through real estate. So those are the things that we're a part of, and we educate. We educate people that look like us. Like, hey, how do we get our credit tight? How do we invest in real estate? How do we create generational wealth through real estate? How do you get into the real estate business? And it's a gateway into commercial real estate for us. So, we tell folks, you want to get in this business, join Empire. Well, that's where we're gonna be at. If you know anybody who works for our firm, we're very active in Empire. And so, and we're intentional about that because we want to be in the community and let people know we're here to help and support any way we can.
Okay. And my last question I give to all my guests is, and I'm going to ask you the same, which is, what's making you happy?
What's making me happy? Man, my kids, man, honestly. That they give me the motivation, that spark to just, keep going. I love my job. I love what I do. I really do. I love what I do. It's not hard for me. It's never been hard for me to work. I'm built that way. I'm built to work. And so no matter what it is that I'm doing, I'm going to work hard at it. But to work and love your work, that's a whole nother thing, and I love it. And so that's what keeps me happy. And then my kids just keep me motivated, and because I want the best for them. Like, if you have kids, you always want the best for your kids. So it just makes my work that much more important, that much more worth it, and it makes me just feel good, So yeah.
Okay. And thank you, Cedric, for doing the interview today. And also thank you for coming out on this weekend, on a weekend morning to even do this. You didn't have to, and so I definitely appreciate you coming out.
Yeah.
And so one last time, how can people find T. Smith? Like, is it website, email, what phone number?
Yeah, www.tdallasmith.com is our website. All of our contact information is on the website, our address, phone number, emails are all on the website. You can just go straight to the website and find it. You can find us on Instagram. I don't even know our handle. I think it's T. Smith. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Connect with us. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And for everyone else who tuned in, thank you for tuning into The Neighborhood Watch. The Neighborhood Watch is your podcast on everything related to Atlanta from the world of entertainment, urbanism, politics, and everything else in between. I am your host, King Williams. Thank you once again for Cedric from T. Smith coming out today to talk about a whole bunch of things. Hopefully we'll get Cedric on an episode in the future. I want you guys to know as well, if you enjoyed this particular podcast, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and like and review wherever you heard this podcast. The other thing is, if you'd like to, even more than that, share it with a friend. Let people know where to find this podcast at, and make sure that you share it. This podcast could not be done without the help of a wonderful person. His name is Brandon, the Network King Alexander. He is a brand strategist here in Atlanta. For all of your video, photography, strategy for corporate, strategy for small business. He can do it all. Make sure you can check out the link below as well as in the show notes below wherever you heard or seen this podcast. Once again, this is brought to you by Brandon, the Network King, Alexander, and all the wonderful things that he's able to do with brand strategy. And the Neighborhood Watch would not be able to even be as successful at all without his input. And also, if you want one of those people who wanted to listen to this podcast or read the transcripts or even read that South DeKalb Mall article, you can sign up to my newsletter at IamKingWilliams.substack.com. So again, IamKingWilliams.substack.com. Thank you very much.